they're not doing this because they like sort of flexing their so-called sort of algorithms in the gym. They see that over long periods of time, which in algorithms can be sort of a couple of hours, the agile folks outperform the muscular ones. And as an educator, as a principal, I'm sure this is not a surprise. Today, you mentioned to me before the call, you're educating folks who are between the ages of 14 and 22. They are likely to be in the workforce until the age of 60, even 70, who knows? That means, according to the students that you're now teaching, they should be working in 2065, the year 2065. Just imagine what the workforce will be like in 2065. It's nearly impossible to predict. So the people who are going to come and specialize in such an extreme way today, it's highly likely that at some point over the next decade, maybe 2 decades, something will happen, the game will change, and suddenly it's not bench pressing anymore. It's something else. And the agile folks who are pretty good at this and are pretty good at that and are pretty good at this and are pretty good at that, they're able to bounce around. So one day GPT chat comes out, the next day a new type of, editing video software comes along. Afterwards, something else happens. And the folks who have a worldly view, a more broad skill set, are far more likely to find a way to fit into this changing world. So another one of the takeaways from the way we see AI developing for us as individuals and as educators is we're finding that broad base and skill sets are more important than narrow and knowledge-based education.
Okay. So it's not just necessarily the understanding of how to utilize the platform, whatever it is, what's the current trend right now, but just being able to adapt is more on the longevity on side of things. Is that what I'm hearing?
100%. I'll just give another example. So we invest in, as I mentioned, lots of startups. And so I'm on the board of about a dozen startups, and we've invested in about 40 of them. And suddenly COVID hits, and nobody obviously could have predicted COVID.
Right.
And you ask, okay, of the 40 startups, which are the ones that successfully managed to navigate their business throughout COVID? Obviously, some of them, if you're, for example, in digital or telemedicine, digital medicine, it's easier than if you're in travel tech.
Right.
But broadly, the agile ones, the ones who were open-minded, who had a broad skill set, were the ones who succeeded far more than the ones who had the sort of more muscle approach, focused approach, didn't sort of think about changing too much. They know this is what we do, and we're going to succeed anyway. And now, sort of a couple of years after COVID, I look back and I just say one thing: which are the agile startups? Those are the ones that I can see succeeding today. And the ones who were very fixed with their mindset found it very difficult. And in a world that's changing so quickly, I think it's just an obvious calling, and one that AI is pushing us towards, that having a broader skill set and a more agile, flexible mindset seems to be the obvious way to go.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit because you mentioned something that kind of stuck out to me. So I took a little note on it because typically ChatGPT, for example, is often utilized to give answers. Write me a 500-word essay on such and such, or what is the answer to this? Like, we put in a lot of prompts that are asking AI to give us the answers to. And so I think that's one of the main reasons why a lot of educators, teachers, for example, are like against it. Professors are against it because, you're just giving artificial intelligent essays and scholarship essays and all these different things that are out there. So what are some other uses that we could have for ChatGPT if that's not the direction we want to go in?
Okay, so let me tell you a story. So I've got a dear friend called Takala. He is an amazing guy who moved to Israel about, I think it's 33 or 4 years ago from Ethiopia. He moved to Israel through the Sahara Desert, and he is the first of his entire family to get an education. He became an engineer. And after doing this, he turned around and said, look what an amazing life I have now. I've got an engineer. He said, my first paycheck, I came home and I bought stuff for my family and my brothers, etc. And then he sat down and he said, actually, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to dedicate my life to helping other Ethiopians get a life that I have now achieved. And so for the last, I think it's 20 years roughly, he's been running an organization called Tech Korea that helps Ethiopians move from working in gas stations and those type of jobs to becoming software coders. And he does this within 10 to 12 months. He gets folks who have no background in computing, some of them barely know English, and within 10 to 12 months, he's able to educate them from nothing so that they get jobs in companies like Intel and Mobileye and Facebook, etc. I met with him last week, and it's really incredible how he does this, etc. And I asked him the same question. I said to him, how are you using the likes of AI and GPT, etc.? And he said to me, it's unbelievable because now I can train people within 8 to 10 months rather than 10 to 12 months. And now the gap between them and some of the other folks who have full university diplomas has become even smaller. And now the folks that I have who are willing to work much harder and are willing to think into the middle of the night for creative solutions, etc., are actually able to surpass some of the guys or girls who started off with a more privileged background. So one of the things that ChatGPT is doing is it's leveling the playing field. You don't necessarily need anymore so many years to get that first job as a coder, as a software engineer, as a video editor, like you said. These are real opportunities for people. And the world is only going to carry on going this way. So just to give another example, 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted to start your own website, that would have taken you, I don't know, a month of programming. And most folks couldn't write, I don't know, C++ or whatever they had to do to try and build a website. And today, for $10 a month, you can build your own website. It's easy. You don't actually have to program at all. You can just do it. You can drag, drop, build it around. AI is coming along and doing that for tons of different industries. It's just starting. But if you want to be a video editor, if you want to be a front-end engineer, if you want to be a back-end, if you want to be, we're just starting to see this. If you want to be a writer, you can get it to write. Even if you found it difficult at the beginning, you can work long enough to get your ideas on paper. And slowly over time, I think the opportunities are only going to grow. So one of the things that I would argue to educators, like those that you mentioned earlier, is that AI is going to democratize a lot of the skill sets that we have today. It's going to provide a step up for people who don't necessarily have the background, but now within a couple of months, they could be doing things that a couple of years ago were unheard of. They couldn't have dreamt about. I think the challenge for these educators is that a lot of them have syllabuses that they have been teaching for many, many, many years, which they like to do stop, start, play. And AI has come along and said, guys, there actually is a much better education that you could offer your students, but you're going to have to redo some of your syllabus. And you and I both know that that is a painful process for the educators. So I don't think it's so much a question of, is AI good or not for the students? Long term, I think for students, and especially for the less privileged ones, it's phenomenal. The question is, are the educators up for the challenge?
Man, you just hit, listen, that part right there makes you hit it hard, because you're right. We got a lot of educators that's been teaching the same thing, same lesson, same syllabus, same test, same exam, same everything. The class is the exact same for the last 10 years because it's easy. It's easier to do it that way as opposed to recreating the wheel every single semester, every single school year. But I mean, I'm just thinking like you could essentially put your syllabus into a chat GPT and ask it for some help with updating your syllabus to be a little bit more current and more AI friendly. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. It depends how much. I mean, the harder you're willing to work as an educator, the students will probably benefit.
Okay. So a lot of the talk that we've had today, and I'm not sure how your book is framed, but is in the future, in the years from now, 10 years from now, we're going to be here. So what would you say to a teacher that says, well, I'll just wait 5 years, or I'll wait for technology to catch up and then I'll start because right now that's just too much. That it's not ready yet. It's not where it needs to be, and it still has a ways to go. How do you respond to an individual that has that kind of language?
It's difficult. I do feel for teachers. You typically, and I don't know how it is in your school, but typically teachers are doing it because they believe in the job and the privilege of teaching others, not because the pay is great, not because the hours are great. So like, you got to feel for teachers. Having said that, the reality is technology is only accelerating, and the students who adapt to this new and changing world are going to be the ones that can then go off and succeed. And if you as an educator want to see your students thrive, you need to think about how you allow them to prosper in this fast changing world. One of the things I would say is, just like I say to students, I would say the same thing to teachers. Technology is becoming far, far more user friendly than it ever was. If you think about sort of, you nodded earlier when I mentioned sort of C++ and building sort of basic websites many years ago. So I'm assuming you've seen or had some type of background here, but these were really horrible for a user to get involved. And I remember from high school when it was even sort of before that, and sort of Pascal and whatever people were writing code back then. I mean, you really had to be very geeky to even want to look at the screen back then. When you mention sort of GPT, it sounds scary. AI, LLMs, the new GPT-4. But the reality is, for anybody, somebody who doesn't like technology at all, the user interface, the experience is so much more pleasant. And what I would say is something that I think most teachers say to their students, which is play with it. Just like if you are a teacher in music, you literally want the students to go home and just be with the instrument. That way they will improve. I would say the same thing with technology. Like AI and GPT, it's becoming so friendly that even folks who have always felt that technology is not for them, and always felt that, I don't know, technology is not their thing, it's always difficult, it gets stuck, etc., I would just play with it. And very quickly you will see, even if it's just the ChatGPT bar, which is very similar to Google. Everyone searches on Google. It's not very different to using that on ChatGPT. And we will start seeing new types of AI, new types of large language modules that will come out. And as long as you're not afraid, as long as you're playing with these things, trying out, spending an hour a week, a couple of minutes a day, you might find that this is not only not scary, but it's actually useful. And it's something that you can integrate into your teaching methods. And it's something that you will become more open-minded to allowing your students to prosper, because I can guarantee that one way or another, your students, your educated students, will come across AI when they meet their first job or just working world. And those who have a more open approach, who have played with this in the past, who've been exposed to this, will just naturally be better positioned than the others.
Do you recommend that higher education, for example, when they're offering teacher prep programs, that they offer an AI, teaching AI or utilizing AI in class? Like usually, like I remember when I was in college and I was going through teacher training, we had just a traditional technology in class type of class. But now I'm just thinking, as I'm talking to you, and I'm thinking about the future, and we're preparing future teachers, should we offer an artificial intelligence class as part of the courses that we're offering for teacher prep programs?
For sure. Let me give you an example. So I'm guessing that when you became a manager, whether it's a principal or even one stage before that, you had a course in Excel. You had to do a budget. You had to check right. You had to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody said to you, no, you're going to do that on a piece of paper with a pen. They gave you a course and said, by the way, when you submit to us your monthly, annual, quarterly reporting, etc., use this tool called Excel. It will make you better. It will eliminate mistakes. And by the way, it would take you less time. It's a win-win-win for everyone. I'm sure you also have a sort of dashboard where you have sort of like some type of portal where you have to enter information, etc. That's also something that didn't exist many years ago. And now most education systems around the world are trying to sort of reskill their teachers. AI is just going to be the next obvious step. If you don't want to use AI, you probably shouldn't be using Excel, just so that you're consistent with your beliefs.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, we had to I remember taking statistics, because we had to implement check grades, academic performance, how our students are doing. And if I hadn't taken a class like that, then I'd probably be in trouble when it comes to looking at the data for our students and the growth and academic progress of our kids.